as you are able, for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'll turn it over to Mr. Progar for the meeting procedures and roll call.
Sure. Thank you, Vice Chair, and thank you to the members of the board, staff, and public for joining us this evening for the March 17th, 2026 Ferguson Township Board of Supervisors regular meeting. This meeting has been properly advertised in accordance with the Pennsylvania Sunshine Act as a hybrid meeting with the option to attend virtually and in person here in the main meeting room. If you were in attendance virtually using the WebEx platform and wish to speak on behalf of an agenda item, please say your name, municipality of residence, and the topic you wish to speak on when the chair calls on you. If you are attending in person with us in the main meeting room and wish to speak on behalf of an agenda item, please address the board at the podium and state your name, municipality of residence, and the topic you wish to speak on. Members of the public attending using the WebEx platform are asked to remain muted during the meeting to prevent any ambient noise from disrupting the meeting. If a member of the public is acknowledged by the chair, they may unmute their microphone for their question or comment. Secondly, board members are asked to indicate their name when motioning or seconding a motion so that the minutes may accurately reflect the action taken. Finally, a roll call of the Board of Supervisors will now be taken to ensure that all members can hear and interact using the WebEx meeting platform. Please indicate that you are here when your name is called. Mr. Thompson? Mr. Patterson?
Present.
Ms. Stevens?
Here.
Mr. Heller?
Here.
Mr. White?
Here.
Vice Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you so much. Do we have any, I don't think we have any announcements or proclamations. None? Okay. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? Do we have anything?
No.
Very good. I do have a couple of things just for the very, very end when we go to talk through communications to the board in addition to joint land use and finance. There were a couple of conferences that were attended, so we'll add NLC and PML if there are no objections.
Cool. Sounds good.
NLC, National League of Cities, PML, Pennsylvania Municipal League. If there isn't anything else, we'll open up for public comment. Let's start online and then bring it to the room. Anyone online for public comment? Seeing no hands nor any come off mute, we'll go to in the room. Anyone? Public comment. All right, we'll move on to our next agenda items. Approval of the minutes. Chair will entertain a motion to approve.
This is Matt, so moved.
This is Patty, I'll second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Motion carries. Minutes approved. On to our reports and presentations. In our inclusionary activities and acknowledgements, we have Women's History Month this month. We have St. Patrick's Day today. Enjoy, be safe. And Palm Sunday at the end of this month. And for our authorities, boards, and commissions reports, we'll have Mr. Kevin Abbey for the Spring Creek Watershed Commission.
Good evening. Kevin Abbey, Ferguson Township resident, and the Board of Supervisors alternate appointment to the Watershed Commission. I come on a regular basis, usually quarterly now, I think we've decided, Jenna. And I want to report that through the help that you provided, and James and others, our Tudeck Park Regenerative Stormwater Channel project has been submitted. It was, the grant was wrapped up and submitted to the Susquehanna River Basin Commission, and got a lot of partners involved, and we're just waiting to hear back about potential funding. And it looks like it could be April or May. So wanted to thank you on that. I would be remiss if I didn't bring up Watershed Cleanup Day. It's April 18th this year, and we are always looking with the over the last few years, the amount of volunteers has increased, and so we're always looking for folks that are willing to be site stewards and can work with Clearwater and the Watershed Commission to pick a spot and then help organize cleanups in those areas. If that's something you're able to do, please welcome that opportunity. Last thing I would report on, tomorrow evening at 6:30, we will have our March meeting of the Watershed Commission in Patton Township. We meet on the odd-numbered months, the third Wednesday, as that's not a meeting night routinely for municipal government. Okay? There's another matter I'm here tonight to talk about, and that is a matter of Rockview lands, okay? And when it's been over a year now since the Department of Corrections announced their intent to close Rockview, and that 5,700 acres in the middle of the valley and up onto the ridges is hugely important to Spring Creek, and so the Watershed Commission has been following along through the process, and as you probably know, the penitentiary has been officially closed. All of the inmates have been moved. The employees have been reassigned throughout the region, central PA, many of them right nearby at the Benner facility. And as part of following and interacting with local officials, elected officials, as well as state reps, the Watershed Commission has been trying to stay current and be a observer, certainly through the first process, as the decisions about closing came about through corrections. Now that that's been done, we look more at land use and future impact of how the Rockview lands might be used. And this evening, you should have a copy of a draft letter that was put together by a few conservation-oriented groups: Clearwater Conservancy, Mount Nittany Conservancy, Lamont Village Council, the Trout Unlimited, their Spring Creek chapter, the Center County chapter of Pennsylvania Senior Environmental Corps, Farm Bureau is involved, a number of different organizations that now that the control of the lands will move from corrections to general services, wanted to weigh in with the governor and urge a community conversation, transparency about how things might take place on the Rockview lands. And the Watershed Commission was supportive of trying to be a signatory to that letter, okay? The executive committee reviewed it, recommended that the Watershed Commission take a motion to become a signatory, and concerns were raised by two municipal managers in the upper part of the watershed, and asked that before the commission go forward with making a decision, taking a vote on becoming a signatory to that letter, it was requested that we go out and in a public meeting like this, in our member municipalities, put it in front of you for the purposes of review and discussion. So that is on the table. We have been to Benner Township and last night Bellefonte, and we're working our way through both the upper part of the watershed, center region, and the lower part of the watershed beyond Benner and Bellefonte to include Spring, Potter, and Walker. Any comments or review about whether you think it's inappropriate, or if you have things you would like Trevor, as your elected official rep, and I to take back to the commission about this letter? It was felt, the last thing I would say is that I think it really was felt, after all that we've followed and how serious a matter this is, that many people wanted to give voice and speak up and say, this is important to the community, and let's be open and transparent about it, and let's have a community conversation.
Awesome, thank you.
I'm the materials in the letter, like 100% in support of. The spirit of the letter. Yeah, I think it's great. I don't know if you necessarily need our approval, but like me personally, big fan. I think basically, like, if we have the land, it's going back to state control. You said general services. I know my big fear, and a lot of fears with other people in the community, is that land being sold off for private uses that may not be in the public's interest. And so, at least, one, speaking to the potential issues that might come up, in the future, and then putting it on record that, like, all of these stakeholders, want this land to go to some form of public use, some public benefit. I think that's absolutely necessary. So I just wanted to say I'm, like I said, big fan of this letter, and I think it's absolutely necessary. I don't think it's inappropriate at all. I'd be curious to know where that, thought's coming from, but yeah.
That's exactly sort of how I felt. I was sort of questioning why it was, what their hesitation was, that to not just have your group send it, but yeah, I support
To
it.
the extent that it's been shared by those two municipal managers, it was the appropriateness of the commission moving ahead independent without coming before its members. And in both instances, Patty, both in Benner and in Bellefonte, they had a reaction like yours, which was, huh? And it's interesting with the weather that we're going through and going to the evening meetings and traveling in the watershed. It really reaffirms what an amazing place we live and how special the watershed is. I would also say that in downstream communities, if you stand up and are supportive of Spring Creek, that's brotherhood. In the upper part of the watershed, where Spring Creek is more of for some people, a concept, it's a little bit different. But we were in Bellefonte last night, and Mark, you would have enjoyed former township manager Dave Provolka is now the interim manager in Bellefonte, so it was good to see him. But the rationale and the notion of being supportive and speaking up for Spring Creek was that was a certainty that they supported, as did Benner.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for all your work on that.
I have no issues with that. I'm just curious, point of order, we were looking for action or anything tonight? I didn't think so, just discussion. So in support of the letter, et cetera.
Watershed Commission said we would go out and review and discuss. We weren't asking for a motion. In the other places that we've been, just to be fair, there was a consensus of the board, and they took a vote to support it. Not asking you to do that, that's up to you, but the big thing for us is that we put it out there, and we've been faithful because we didn't want the municipal managers that raised a concern to feel as if we weren't purposeful and thoughtful about their concerns.
Understood, and receptive and now taking action towards those goals or issues that they raised. That sounds great. No, I'm thumbs up. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just echo, I appreciate the letter and kind of what it's seeking to do. I also appreciate those that brought it up, that wanted to bring it in the light, and just in the public. So thank you for bringing it for everybody to read and get the packet and take a look. So much appreciated. I guess to the extent, I mean, we can talk about bringing it to the next agenda if we want to do a letter of support officially through staff. But maybe that's not necessary. I don't think you guys.
I'm not sure it is.
Okay.
Just important to hear what you have to say, and that we're mindful of, because this is a big deal in terms of the watershed. I mean, if you stop to think about 5,700 acres and what land uses might take shape, it sits right on top of Spring Creek in many places. So.
Please.
I actually had a question just related to the general presentation and everything. Because, sometimes I'm a slow learner. I admit that. My wife reminds me of that every day sometimes. But, we have UAJA in the house right after this, Mr. Kunkel. So how are things going? Because UAJA and Spring Creek very closely linked,
Right
right?
next door,
Because
yeah.
Don't want to call effluents, but the discharge cleansed and everything goes in. So how's that? Everything with UAJA, the relationship?
The relationship is strong.
Great.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
One of the things that we have done in recent years to ensure that there was open communication and trust building, we have an authorities committee that is specifically set up for UAJA, Spring Benner Walker on the water side, State College Borough Water, College Township Water, so that issues like this can come before that authorities committee. And one of the beautiful parts about it is that Ray Stolinas from the county's planning office co-chairs that group with Pam Adams from Center Region Planning. So, things are good with UAJA. Corey's always been very forthright and very purposeful about the importance of Spring Creek. Yeah.
And again, I'm not sure how many folks in the public get that connection because it's an important one, UAJA and Spring Creek and working together. So I applaud the relationship there and the continued efforts to work together. So thank you.
Thanks for asking. Yeah. Thank you for the time.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks.
Yep, thanks, Kevin.
All right. Next up, we have University Area Joint Authority, or UAJ, Mr. Mark Kunkel.
Evening, board members. Mark Kunkel, one of your two representatives to the University Area Joint Authority. Wes Lee would normally be here this evening. He's got a little medical issue he's dealing with, and so we're going to swap off, and he's going to take the next meeting. I was interested in hearing, though, that as an aside, that you talked about transparency and what have you, and it's interesting. This week is Sunshine Week.
It is.
So we're celebrating the Sunshine Act. And I do want to compliment Ferguson Township as one of the few municipalities in our area here that puts their entire agenda packet on their website. That's important to people that want to engage with the board, either at the meeting or prior to or after the meeting, that they have an entire picture of the topics that you're on your agenda. Many agencies and local governments only place just what they minimally have to do under the Sunshine Act, and so I'm pleased that Ferguson is one of those municipalities that does that, particularly here on Sunshine Week. So with that, I've enclosed a copy of our report for this quarter, and I'm not going to belabor it much, but you talked about the partnership that we have with Spring Creek, and one of the projects that we are very pleased to have bring to close is our ozone disinfection this takes care of PFAS, which is a huge issue for water quality. And so we're really pleased that that's moved forward. That's a really cutting edge technology that we're using to address that issue. Our biggest project, though, is this biosolids project, or as it's listed here, the anaerobic digester and sludge dryer project. This is a almost $85 million project that we're hoping to have online here in mid-April. And I would invite the board members to schedule a tour through Tom King, your interim manager here, that we would love to have you come up, take a look at this project, see how it works. It's a very complex project, but I think it's going to reap huge benefits for the region and for the ratepayers. The other thing I would like to suggest to the board, if you're interested, is as a precursor to that, I would hope that maybe the next, after this project is up and running, that we might bring Corey Miller in, our executive director, and do an overview of the project so that you get an idea of how this thing actually functions and what the outputs are going to be. And so if maybe we could schedule that for our next meeting, quarterly meeting with the board, and take a 10-minute presentation, I think that would be very beneficial to the public and to the board members. As you know, this project is actually replacing our old composting project that we used to have, that we've actually, the technology of that and the parts and equipment and everything, we've just run out of its lifespan. And so this project is going to accept biosolids, sludge, what have you, from a variety of other surrounding authorities. So we'll be importing their sludge into this process. We're also working with the Center County Recycling and Refuse Authority to bring some of their organics over. And tomorrow evening, the board's going to be considering entering into 2 contracts for food waste from one of the largest food waste contractors in the United States, called Denali Water Solutions. And they've purchased another group called Organics. And so we're going to have 2 contracts that they'll be bringing food waste in. We'll be able to depackage that and process that. And so the outcome of this is we're going to have actually what we call green gas that's going to be placed into the system, and it's going to produce about $500,000 in revenue for the authority. So I am hopeful that that translates into either stable or reduced rates for our collection and processing treatment at the facility. As you all know, we've had an ongoing dispute with State College Borough, and we're hoping this summer that comes to a conclusion. But currently, the University Area Joint Authority is out about $4.6 million right now in lost revenue, interest, and penalties on some of that. So this hinges really on an interpretation of the Municipalities Planning Code or Municipal Authorities Act, I'm sorry. And so we've been unsuccessful in mediation at this point in time, and so we'll hope that the courts can unwind this thing and get it resolved for us. 537 planning is going on with some small area plans, and the bigger issue is after the regional comp plan is done, I think the municipalities in the sewer service area are going to be asked to take a look at an update of the outdated 537 plan for the center region. We're also not standing still with regard to looking at a variety and a different variety of how we establish our rates for non-residential customers. And so we've been in the process of that for about 2 years now. We're getting closer to having a final way of actually potentially implementing that type of new rate alternative. And last but not least, I think the overall financial impact of major energy and treatment plant projects is listed on the last page of my report. And I just want to call out the one that says reimbursed capital ITC/grant. These are tax credits that are going to, we're hoping that are going to come back as a result of this biosolids project. And that would be a huge influx of revenue, something that we could potentially use for sinking funds, pay off more debt, some of the debt, etc. So just to give you an idea of the benefit of some of those projects. Any questions?
No.
I would be up for the presentation by Mr. Miller and everything. I think that sounds like a great idea, and any tours, I'm always open for it, especially because it helps make that connection between UHAA, Spring Creek, and everybody, that we're all part of the community. So thank you for that.
Two questions. We did a visit, was that last year?
Yes.
I think it was last year. And in that visit, I don't think they knew, I had asked, is this all PFAS or exploded or some percentage? And at the time they were testing it. Do you know if they've got any clearer on, does it truly remove everything? Does it just, blast up?
We're at 50,000
Okay, all right.
feet, and now we're talking down here.
We've got the
But,
chemicals.
Tomorrow afternoon, I'll see Jason Word from Route 2, and
Okay.
I'll ask him that question with regard to how much of the PFAS is actually taken out of the water.
Yeah, I knew it, in, sample sizes, they've seen it do really, really well, but I, just across a whole, 50,000 gallons of, whatever the rate is it getting rid of all of it? So thank you for that. Second thing is on the credits. Is that revenue the anticipated from the credits, meaning, there's really 60 million in credits, they sell them off for 30 million, or is it dollar for dollar?
Dollar for dollar.
Wow, okay. And there's a market for that?
Yes. Amazingly, there's a market for it.
Yeah. All right, great. And that's all I had. And I agree with Matt, I'm up for any visits and presentations. I don't know if June works because they're in CIP time, but if we need to pull it forward, maybe we can just, I guess you guys negotiate that, right?
I think if we do it in conjunction with the report from UAJA, which would be March or June, I think we should be able to manage that for a 10-minute presentation or so.
Well, that way we'll be up and running for a couple of months,
We should be able to manage that.
the court will have a better idea of how things are working.
Very good. Thank you. Excellent. Anybody else? Any follow-ups? Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, and we're up to department reports. Mr. Manager.
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to make a couple notes on the administrative report and then see if the board has any questions regarding the other reports that are in your packet. Want to make sure the board and the community know that we continue the process for the township manager recruitment. The position closed on February 27th. They had a total of 43 applications. The consulting firm has been working through those applications, and next week the board is scheduled to meet with the consultant to begin the review of the qualified candidates, to begin the process of looking through those applications and beginning to make some decisions regarding that in terms of interviews and both virtually and eventually in person. So I want to make sure everybody was aware of that. The second is to make sure, I'll steal this thunder from the chief, make sure everyone knows that we are getting ready to do police testing. And just to explain briefly, we're in the process with the testing in April. The dates are Saturday, April 11th, and Wednesday, April 15th. That's 2 opportunities to take the test. You don't need to take both those days. That is, in case you can't make it April 11th, it gives you an option that you could take it, the test April 15th. What we are doing is establishing a police officer eligibility list. So the process is you test to get onto an eligibility list, and then any future vacancies in the police department, after that list is created, come off of that eligibility list. We're at the point now where our current eligibility list is expired. We've gone through the names on that list, and so we're in the process of testing in April to create a new eligibility list that will be used for probably the next 12 to 18 months, depending on how quickly we have vacancies. And then the last thing, I'm pleased to announce that yesterday, our new Human Resources Director began employment, Kelly Varner. She's day 2 and has been here late each day so far, trying to get things organized. She comes with much experience, most recently in the private sector, working for a manufacturing company in the Lewistown area. And she comes with much education and much experience in human resources. So this being Employee Appreciation Month, I wanted to recognize our new employee and also recognize just all of our employees that we have working for the township. I've just grown to learn very quickly in my 5 months here now what wonderful staff we have and how hard working and dedicated. And I will just end on recognizing, and I know Supervisor Heller has mentioned this in the past about our police and our road crews. But I just want, James Progar and I were just talking probably less than an hour ago about the frequent call-outs that our public works crews have been getting this winter. And so I just want to recognize publicly, on behalf of James and I both, the hard work that our road crew is doing. For January and February, it was mostly snow, but I can tell you for March, it's mostly wind and trees down. As in fact, we had one as recent an hour ago going down, and then out there now cutting up another tree to get it clear the roadway. So just in showing the appreciation for our employees, especially in this month, I just want to thank not only our new employee and welcome her, but all of our staff here at Ferguson Township. Special emphasis on our road crew who have been working day and night for quite some time. That's all I have for administration report.
Joan?
I just want to continue that thread and again express my sincere appreciation for all of our staff, road crews, officers, everybody coming together, working together, and making this township what it is. So sincerely, I appreciate that. And also, I want to speak to earlier comments about the police testing, because that was new to me when I became a supervisor. And I want everybody listening that might be tuning into this later and in the room to recognize that we select and we identify the cream of the crop of our officers. They go through the testing, they sit down, there's thorough analysis, review, and vetting.
Yes.
And these officers truly deserve our appreciation because they put so much out there, but also they are and should be recognized for the exceptional support they bring to our township and our residents. And I can't thank them enough for everything that they do. So that's an important thing, and that's what I wanted to tie back to the police testing, that we don't lose, that we have the best of the best. So
Thank you for that.
Okay, Ms. Stevens? Anything? Mr. White? No. All right, I have a couple of things. Just on the list and the testing, do all municipalities do the same test? Every police?
Same test?
Just curious, yeah, maybe it's not, but.
Well,
Same
not
process.
necessarily. Same process, yeah. I mean, I don't know of a police department that doesn't do it through creating a eligibility list. A lot of that comes from the civil service, many of the civil service organizations. That's been in place for decades. That's exactly how I got hired in 1981. I first had to get on an eligibility list. And so I've never known anything different, and I don't know any police department in Pennsylvania that does it any differently.
Copy. Is there an opportunity, and do we do it by ourselves?
We currently do police testing by ourselves, yes, sir.
Okay. Is there an opportunity to regionalize that?
Certainly, yeah. We have talked over the years, when I was in my role as police chief, I have talked with the Center Region chiefs about the pros and cons of doing some regional testing. I think it's certainly now with, certainly two of the three chiefs being very new, one at State College and one at Ferguson, and Patton Township, certainly to revisit whether or not it makes any sense. It's not for now, it's not an opportunity to do it for what we've already started to advertise. State College is also in the process of advertising and are testing. But I think it'd be something longer term for the next go-around. Does it make some sense of trying joint testing or consortium testing, certainly within the center region?
Okay. It just dawned on me, like, we're testing. I did hear the borough was testing, and so there's a cost to the test. And so if everybody were to split the cost of the test and get this pool for the region, I know there's some people that go between municipalities to, so I don't know that we there's competition because, we don't have positions open right now, but we may have at some point.
We will, yeah.
And the borough, I think, has positions open now, so they'd probably get the first couple off the list because they have positions now. And well, what if we had an opening later? We'd get number 3 potentially, or number. So that this seems like an opportunity to, save a couple nickels here and there.
Well, look at the chief, but certainly I would think that's something the chief may be interested in, at least having discussions about any value in that, but I defer to him.
Yeah, we all do a similar process, but we're not all doing the exact same thing, so we certainly have to agree upon exactly what that process will be and how we'll create that list, and we have to do that all within our own parameters, civil service and our different rules within the townships and the borough. It does create a situation where, depending on when you're ready to hire, you have a position. Just like what you said, the borough could be a little bit ahead of us and take some people off of the list, hire them. So we're going to be in competition on the list. And I can say that there are people that I know that I'm aware of, I should say, that are like taking both tests. They're interested in being a police officer in the center region, so they're taking both tests, so that eventually will wind up on both eligibility lists, and then whoever gets to them first. I've seen that happen time and time again. So there are some pros and cons to it. It's not something I would have conversations about doing that, because other areas have done regional testing.
Copy. Right. Thank you. Yeah, would love to see some areas of just a couple of nickels saved, and every nickel is up.
If I may, and I just want to take what Chief said there, it actually creates for me some of the concerns around poaching of candidates. Yeah, I'm getting some smiles. I've seen that before when you have these regionalized testing. I know with attorneys, the LSAT, schools start poaching folks and knowing who's who on who got what list first. More to follow with that presentation. Yeah.
Just a thought.
I get it.
Thank you. And then also on the police side, I don't know if who wants to take this, but I know the letter says, hey, we had the cyber incident. We're a little behind on getting that data updated in the system. I think this is the first kind of impact of Ferguson. Were there any others from a cyber incident perspective?
No, and the chief could let you know what impact and where they currently stand in getting back to where everything's entered in. So I'll defer to the chief.
Yeah, we're in good shape right now. It was just pulling this board report together and doing our UCR reports and sending them to the state. So could our staff have gotten it done? It would have been a rush job to get it done. So I obviously talked to Mr. King and got approval to push that back just to make sure that we're doing a good job with that. But we were without an RMS system for 13 days, and we're all caught up. Everything is in the RMS system. It's just those kind of last couple things and getting this report done in UCR that we're just buttoning up at this point. And you'll certainly see that report the first meeting in April, and then you'll see your March report the second meeting of April on target.
Good, very good. No, thank you. I'll move over to the planning side. No issues with the report itself, but I was curious. I think we've talked about as a board, if there's things that we can do to help with, whatever inconsistencies there are within our ordinances, that we want to move on those. So just more of a general question: is there anything coming, or are you seeing anything where we need to act on anytime soon?
We are working on some things, but I'll let our planning director make a couple comments there.
Oh, yeah, same comment as before, that the smaller items we're packaging together to bring first to the Planning Commission. Planning Commission has identified some of the larger, more regional issues that we're going to talk through actually at our next meeting that may come to you for permission to bring forward as a larger item. And then those items that I mentioned previously, that like stormwater, that span across several chapters and then eventually trip on themselves. Those are things that we're now outlining what the proposal will look like. But we're still staying in the realm of efficiency and clarification versus a whole philosophy change, because that really should follow the comp plan.
Great. And then, you know what, I'll ask it offline, and we'll bring it public later, but I'm going to say it now that I've already just said enough. I've talked to some other towns throughout the nation, and they had these kind of almost like a rapid approval process. There's certain things that with like a certain, if they meet these kind of parameters, then the approvals are like, you know, very quick. And I know we've got to stay within the municipal plan code, but do we have things like, can we get things like that in the hopper? Not a directive, but more of a question
I can speak to
for
that.
future.
That is definitely a wish of mine that I've talked to staff quite a bit, and especially with we still have somewhat newer staff, and I told them, you know, keep an eye out for those things that you see that just seem routine, and it just seems it's more tedious where it could just be a performance standard in the code. So what can we continue to push down? I've also mentioned it's anything from that to conditional uses. Conditional uses are appropriate when we need those additional criteria. But when it's just a conditional use and yet another layer and it feels like a double process, so those are the kinds of things we're looking at as well. And then also things that just continually cause discussion before someone can apply, where it's not clear what path to put them on. Maybe the uses in the code are just a little bit too narrow, but somebody wants to go in between, but that's not there.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking at those as well. But loud and clear what you just said, and that is definitely a wish that, you know, does everything need an approval? If it's always the same answer, and it can just be right there in the code.
Thank you.
Also, just wanted to mention one of the topics that the staff wanted to eventually talk about, and Planning Commission raised it a couple times. I'll make sure the board's aware of. I think it's at the first meeting in April. The Planning Commission is going to be talking about data centers, because that's a very hot topic in Pennsylvania. So that's going to go to the Planning Commission, and then we'll eventually come to the board with that. So
On that note, I went to the Planning 101 with Mr. Keogh March 10th, I think it was. That sounds right. And that's actually what we discussed was because we participate in a regional comp plan with College Township, and College Township has implemented an ordinance. This is basically because of our participation there, they allow that use. Therefore, we don't necessarily have to. And so that's something just to get out ahead of that as well. It's that was brought up at this meeting as well. So that's something to consider, right?
that was discussed at the last Planning Commission meeting by Pam Adams. So she was doing an overview of the plan, but she had mentioned incidentally about the data centers and whether or not the use has to be at each municipality or if it exists. So that's all going to be stuff. But I just wanted to give the board a heads up that one of the topics that the Planning Commission will be dealing with starting in April is the data centers, which has just been a big issue certainly throughout the state, if not the country. So.
Yes.
Excellent. All right. If there isn't anything else, we'll go to the annual Planning Commission activities report. Number 4 on the agenda.
That would be our planning director, Ben Smith.
So, thank you. Included in your packet is the yearly Planning Commission annual report. This is a requirement of the MPC. It has been approved by the Planning Commission. They've given some input on things that they would like to see. Previous years, it was labeled State of Planning. We tried to make it a little bit more uniform with following what the MPC likes, but we've still added some of those things that you're used to seeing. So the commission is, the work plan is in here. I guess just to kind of summarize, it included in the report, there were 2 preliminary land development plans, 3 final land development plans, 2, we call them minor land development plans with the preliminary final combo, where there's no significant utilities and things like that, where we go through in one shot. 3 minor subdivisions, 1 conditional use, and then we separately listed, because that's how it has been the practice in the past, modifications and waivers. There were 8. And then some of those additional things that were added that are things that the planning and zoning department do that typically follow. Some of them follow from the planning commission work, so it felt appropriate. And that's the wish of the planning commission. So 262 zoning permits. And there are also 16 work plan items. And all the work plan items have been touched in one way or another, but not formally presented for discussion to the planning commission. Those items do continue forward. And I will add all of this with a lot of transitions in staff, and our appreciation, kudos to our staff for all of this work.
Questions? My only question was in the work plan. I think generally there was I think last year we did last year we did a work plan kind of discussion, and we maybe moved some things from left to right. We didn't do that this year. However, one thing I noticed was workforce housing was in Q3. And we had an ordinance that was, I'd say 80 to 90% where it needed to be, but there was that 10% that probably, maybe that's 2 years ago. So here we are 2 years later, and it's now Q3 of this year. But I also saw that it was going to wait on the Center County Solutions-Based Housing Study in there. Do you have a date on that study, when it's going to be done? Is that kind of informing the Q3?
So if this is something that we're directed to bring forward as a priority, that is something we can do. There are other things that have risen to the top, but I can tell you at the staff level and from questions that have come up in talking with developers, we've spent a lot of time researching this and understanding the background, understanding what that ordinance the current ordinance looks like in application, including there's a fee in lieu, and while it sounds like a hefty number, well, actually it is a hefty number, that's the point. In practice, things don't line up as the ordinance looks like it does, but we have a greater understanding of that. So that's what I'm saying. Behind the scenes, a lot of these things have moved forward.
Okay.
And they can continue. So it's just a matter of how we're directed as staff to what are the priorities.
Yeah, we'll discuss that and bring something forward in terms of where that stands in priority for the list.
Okay.
Since there wasn't work plans done specifically, but we can let you know where it stands in the priority list.
Very good.
If I may, just related to that, maybe some thoughts here. Recently, I had a resident approach me and say, "Hey, what's going on with this one property? All of a sudden, things are changed. There's construction site," and I had to go back in my own notice to 2024, and that doesn't seem like a long time to folks, but sometimes when you're sitting in this chair, that is forever ago. And 2024, I said, "Oh, that's when we approved this plan," but they finally really started to get to work now. Where does somebody go if they want to see not just what was recently approved or active things that were there, but by the way, these are all the things that we approved that are not yet complete? Or is there any feedback that we see there, or ways that we monitor what actually is going on at the sites, or when the ground is broken? Just curious.
Go ahead, and I'll respond. Go ahead.
I don't want to speak over you. So internally, we've started tracking too. We kind of joke that it's never over. You think you're at an end point, and then you got to report it. Then you need the zoning permit. Now it's under construction. Now you need the temporary certificate of occupancy. Oh, there's another escrow. There's another. So we're tracking. So we have an internal of under construction. I'm happy to move that to just our updated reports. the issue, or not, but part of it is that there's sort of a handoff. We do we set up the land development plan piece and the zoning piece, but then it's Center Region Codes that manages the construction itself, and then we're invited back into the end piece. In the meantime, as far as the notice to the public, there is that, sign that stays out there. But we've also noticed that when they're fully into construction, that sign is in the way. So that's another thing we're looking at, is when can that come down? So open to, but I think the manager would have.
Just curious.
Yeah, and there are, some municipalities will put a dashboard or something on a website that will put down the status of different plans and where they are in terms of approval. So if you have a property that's gone through approval process, but they really haven't done construction or began construction for 18 months later, if you look up the address or something, you could click on something to say, oh, this is what's going in there, this is what the approval process is, this is where it stands. It takes work to keep that up, so it's really labor intensive. But that's one way the public, they also could always, it's a public information, so if someone was really interested, not that it's that convenient, they could call the planning office and say, we're just wondering, interested in what was approved for this location. And the office would give them that information. It's public information. So
I appreciate that. And part of my role, I feel, as a supervisor is also to act as a little bit of an insulation between questions like that and not to burden staff with that.
Right.
So, I did my own homework, dusted off some cobwebs, and recalled, oh, this is 2024.
Yeah.
Got it. So, again, it was just something that came up in passing, so I wanted to bring it to your attention, just really ask the question if folks had things like that, what to do. But I will go ahead and make the commitment to do my own homework when they ask, before, of course, throwing anything over the proverbial fence to staff. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
yes.
Excellent. We will go ahead and move on to item 6 on the agenda, unfinished business. And now we're done. We'll move on to item 7, new business. And the consent agenda. Anyone want to pull from the consent agenda? 2 items: authorization to terminate solar power purchase agreement and the brickwork self-storage surety release. All right, I'm pulling the solar power purchase agreement. And with that said, Chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda minus item A.
Mr. Trevor, so moved.
This is Patty, I'll second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Same. Motion carries. Item A, the authorization to terminate solar power purchase agreement. I just wanted to make just more of a note that I don't think that this is dead forever. I think it's dead right now. The way that credits are, I think I asked the question to Mr. Abbey when he was here about credits being dollar for dollar. That's not the case anymore with these, or even anywhere close. That market's different. Credits are different. Just the whole market is different around solar. So this deal's not dead forever. And there's been a lot of learning around it. A lot of learning. I've learned a lot. I don't know about you guys, but I just wanted to toss that out there, and I have no issues with the termination. It is what it is right now. So, anything else?
I think also global events play an important thing as we consider solar in the future, and we see the local impacts to some of those decisions globally right now. And again, something to keep in mind should it ever come back in front.
Stevens? Mr. Mike? All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve item A, authorization to terminate solar power purchase agreement.
This is Patty, so moved.
Mr. Trevor, I'll second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I guess it could be because they all forgot. Motion carried. Item 7.2, public hearing on a resolution of the Township of Ferguson, Center County, Pennsylvania, adopting a revised capital asset and depreciation policy. I'll turn it over to manager to introduce.
The board is being asked to consider a resolution amending the township's capital asset and depreciation policy by increasing the fixed asset capitalization threshold from $2,500 to $5,000. The current $2,500 threshold was established in February 2013 under Resolution 2013-6 when it was increased from 1,000. Due to the increased asset costs and evolving best practices, staff recommends updating the threshold to better reflect materiality and administrative efficiency. The proposed $5,000 threshold aligns more closely with recommendations of the Government Finance Officers Association and is consistent with surrounding municipalities' capitalization policies. This change will apply prospectively and will not require retroactive adjustments to previously capitalized assets. There is no direct budgetary impact. However, fewer lower cost items will be capitalized and depreciating going forward, reducing administrative tracking requirements. It's recommended that the Board of Supervisors move to adopt the resolution revising the capital asset and depreciation policy.
All right, this is a public hearing. I'll open up for public comment. Will any public comment online for this resolution? Nothing online. Anybody in the room? All right, I'll close public comment. Mr. Teller.
Will you take a motion?
Absolutely.
Move that the Board of Supervisors adopt the resolution revising the capital asset and depreciation policy.
This is Trevor, I'll second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Discussion.
Yeah, I have,
Sure.
okay, so right now, let's say hypothetically, a laptop costs $2,600. That would be capitalized and depreciated as such, but with this, a laptop costs $2,600 and we up it to $5,000, it's no longer depreciated. It's no longer included in that. Is that, am I
That's
understanding?
correct if
Okay.
that's the only laptop purchased. However, if we bought,
Yeah.
like this year, I think we had to get 10 laptops
Yeah.
and that was $26,000 in your example, it's
Yeah,
capitalized.
okay. Just wanted to.
Yep.
Steve.
No, I appreciate the example, thank you.
Mr. Teller. My only question was, how many items have we had that are above 25 but less than 5 that we needed to kind of get, address this policy with?
I don't, go ahead.
I could get that answer. I don't have it with me. It's not remarkable. It's more to make us align and bring it up to current.
Okay.
It's been 13 years since it was adjusted, and so any talks I have with other townships, everybody's at this threshold,
Copy.
essentially.
As I was thinking through this, I actually was wondering if 5,000 was too low. I mean, I literally, we've got a laptop, or I don't know what other items are. If it's 5, it's 5. I was just curious if there's anything else that comes to mind as we've done this CIP, that it's like, gosh, I really hate that we have to do this every single year for this, $6,000 thing. It doesn't make sense, but that's what was 5,000 too low? That's my question.
Well, there was a range that I even ran it by our auditing firm, and 5,000 to 10,000 is reasonable for our township size. Right, if we had a $2 billion budget, then we may want to do 25,000, right? But
That was what we were getting in that $5,000 to $10,000 range, so we brought the 5, doubling it from where it is, knowing that it could be revisited.
Sure.
Instead of waiting 13 years, it could be revisited in 3 or 4 years or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. If that's the number, then I was good with this. I was, asking the question on, is there something else? And so maybe we'll see something in the budget this year that we then say, we should bring it to 7 next time because this is silly, right? Let's get rid of these inefficiencies. I'm not a fan. All right, it's been probably moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
It's a roll call.
This roll call vote, Mr. Manager.
Vice Chair Patterson,
Yes.
Ms. Stevens,
Yes,
Mr. Heller,
Yes.
Mr. White,
Yes.
passes 4-0.
Thank you, sir. Dang dog, I just want to say thank you. I don't know if it was you, Mr. Grady, that brought it up. Thank you for kind of bringing Mr. Manager, whoever. Thank you. Let's keep doing these types of things that are going to keep making your jobs and just our processes more efficient. Thank you.
That leads us into the next one.
All right. Number 3, discussion and consideration to increase the asset threshold for the Ferguson Township Capital Improvement Plan. Mr. Manager?
Ferguson Township's current capitalization threshold for capital assets is $2,500. This threshold, which has been in place for years, determines when a purchase is recorded as a capital asset and included in the capital improvement plan. Because of inflation and increased costs, the current threshold has resulted in a growing number of lower cost items being included in the capital improvement plan. For purposes of this inclusion in the capital improvement plan, staff recommends increasing the threshold to $10,000 for individual budgeted items or quantities of budgeted items. This will reduce the number of lower cost items in the capital improvement plan. The lower cost items under $10,000 will be included and discussed in the operating budget. The Board of Supervisors, it's recommended the Board of Supervisors approve increasing the threshold to $10,000 for individual budgeted items or for quantities of budgeted items for inclusion in the capital improvement plan.
Excellent. I guess let's go ahead and start with a motion. How about that? Chair will entertain a motion.
This is Matt. Move that the supervisors approve increasing the threshold to $10,000 for individual budgeted items or for quantities of a budgeted item for inclusion in the capital improvement plan.
This is Trevor, I'll second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Discussion.
I guess my main question would be, what's the 10,000 here versus the 5,000 in the previous? I guess.
We will still capitalize $5,000 items, but just for the planning purposes, it needs to be over $10,000 to be put in the plan, because the plan is not an allocation of funds, it's just a plan. And then anything under that threshold will be in the operating budget to discuss at that time. So there's two different standards essentially.
So this would be basically doing the, when we're budgeting out, planning out 5 years, having the costs or the expenditures larger than what we expect as like a general best practice. Whereas, actually, I'm thinking out loud on this, so I apologize. I'm gonna
We won't be discussing a $7,000 item 4 years from now.
yeah.
And it will be discussed in the operating
Right,
budget.
until the operating budget.
It will be, it's not like you don't see it,
Thank you.
it just won't be part of that plan.
And then it'll be depreciated okay.
There was only 3 or 4 items, there wasn't that many that qualified.
Not that many items, and thank you for saying that, because I was ready to jump in and say it doesn't mean that we lose track of these items.
not at all.
They go to operating and we track them there, etc. So again, anybody that's listening, they don't just go into the ether and we write blank checks.
Right.
Thank you for saying that, Mr. Manager. My only comments.
Stevens.
Nothing.
And I just wanted to maybe go through one example. It's the aggregate it's the total of the line item. So if it was we're budgeting $2,500 a year for 4 years, that 10,000, that item does make it onto the capital improvement program? Or no, it's 10,000 for a single year, single aggregate item?
Yeah,
Okay.
for the year that you're proposing, putting
Okay.
the money in.
Okay, so there will be no 2, 4, 6, 8, and it's 20,000 total. 2, 4, 6, 8 is 20, yeah. That's what I was trying to get to, is if you've got over 4 years, you've got an item that you're spending.
I'm
it's the
sorry, I
total.
misunderstood your question. If what you're saying is we have an item that's gonna cost, let's say $10,000.
Yes.
But we're gonna spread it out over 4 years and make it $2,500 each.
Yes.
That's a $10,000 item.
So it's the total. Got it. Okay. All right. Very good. All right. Just wanted, that's my clarity. And the thing, I was totally off for this. And then Mr. White got me thinking about the breaking up of that. Does that count? So thank you. All right. Any additional discussion? And I guess I'd invite any public comment while we're all here. Very good. If there is none, this is not a roll call vote. So all those in favor, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, the same. Motion carries. That was an aye, by the way. Forgot to talk. All right, we'll move on to item 4, public hearing on a resolution of the Township of Ferguson, Center County, Pennsylvania, amending the 2026 fee schedule to update solid waste removal fees effective April 1, 2026. Mr. Manager, would you want to introduce that?
Beginning April 1st, 2025, Center Region Council of Governments Recycling and Refuse Removal Contracted Service changed to Bergmeyer's Hauling. On March 5th, 2026, the COG Climate Action and Sustainability Committee approved new rates for the residential refuse and recycling contract with Bergmeyer's Hauling. These rates will take effect on April 1st, 2026 and extend through March 31st, 2027. Rates for the residential refuse and recycling contract adjust annually on April 1st for each year of the contract by three factors: disposal costs at the Center County Recycling and Refuse Authority, fuel costs, CNG, and the Consumer Price Index for collection and billing services. This year, there were no fuel cost increases. The annual adjustment for total residential rates is capped at a 5% increase. Rates this year increased between 0.6% and 2.54%, depending on the level of service, such as container size, extra containers requested, and door service. And the rates for the upcoming year are in the chart in the agenda. Board of Supervisors, it's recommended the Board of Supervisors adopts the resolution amending the 2026 fee schedule to update solid waste removal fees effective April 1st, 2026.
All right, it's a public hearing. I'll open up the floor for public comment. Anything on, we'll start online. Anyone online? All right, seeing no hands raised or anyone come off mute, we'll go to in the room. Take a motion to adopt the resolution.
This is Trevor, so moved.
This is Matt, I'll second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Mr. Heller.
Please, Mr.
You started last time. Mr. Heller, you're up.
Okay, so very simply, I know we throw out percentages, but as I reported at I believe our last meeting, it's essentially a 10 cents to a 79-cent increase per month, depending on what trash can size you picked. That's what it really boils down to for customers, between 10 cents and 79 cents a month. Thank you.
Ms. Stevens?
Nothing.
Mr. White?
Because this was in the joint Lucy and Cass meeting that we were at, and I asked one of the questions. It was more methodological because they were using Consumer Price Index, and that was very odd to me because this is a producer, and they were so. Anyway, that being said, the reason given was basically like wage increases was the reason for the rate increase was largely what it's attributed to, which is why they used the CPI. So basically, this is just because of inflationary pressures on wages with Bergmeyer's, if I'm not mistaken. That's the takeaway. So, just clarification, I guess, if that is clarity or yeah.
All right. Any additional discussion? All right. Hearing none. Mr. Manager, roll call vote.
Vice Chair Patterson.
Yes.
Ms. Stevens.
Yes.
Mr. Heller.
Yes.
Mr. White.
Yes.
Passes unanimously 4-0.
Excellent. We'll move on to item 5. Discussion and authorization to post a legal advertisement for a public hearing on a conditional use application to allow the storage of land clearing material in the Rural Agricultural District located at 2850 Ernest Lane. Mr. Manager.
The Township received an application submitted by Pentair Engineering Incorporated for a conditional use application to allow the storage of land clearing material in the Rural Agricultural Zoning District located at 2850 Ernest Lane, with the tax parcel IDs listed in the agenda. The parcels combined are 51.56 acres. No structures are proposed and no additional impervious surface area is proposed. The overall proposal is an expansion of an existing fill pile. Separately, a preliminary land development plan has been submitted and is under staff review prior to the review by the Township Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. On February 23rd, 2026, the request was presented to the Planning Commission by staff and the applicant. Public comment was heard and the Planning Commission discussed questions and concerns. The case was continued to March 9th, 2026. Planning Commission meeting, and after further discussion, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend denial of this conditional use application by Lindsay Kiefer for the property with the property number listed in the agenda. that was denied. They're recommending denial due to the fact that the Planning Commission and the supervisors cannot recommend an expansion of the Ferguson Township definition of land clearing material without a zoning modification. Since this remains a pending conditional use application, the township is required to hold a public hearing on the application. The board is asked to reauthorize advertisement for a public hearing for a requested conditional use to an upcoming date to be determined by staff. This advertisement was originally authorized by the board at their meeting on February 17th, 2026, for a hearing that was originally to occur on March 3rd, 2026. It's recommended that the Board of Supervisors reauthorize staff to advertise a public hearing for the requested conditional use.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to reauthorize staff to authorize a public hearing.
This is Matt, so moved.
This is Trevor, I'll second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion?
This is just a process.
This just allows staff to go ahead and advertise, and then a public hearing will be held, so all interested parties can come to provide testimony, and the board can hear testimony and witness statements from any interested parties. It's something we are required to do, given that we have an active application.
Very good. All right, anything else? Good, okay. It's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And motion carries. Because it was unanimous. All right, on to number 6, informational update and discussion on projected Cecil Urban Park construction. Mr. Manager.
Cecil Urban Park Phase 2 construction was approved in the 2026 CIP and operating budget following approval in multiple capital improvement plans. The total project cost is $1.1 million. In October 2023, the township was awarded grant funding from the Pennsylvania Department of Natural Resources via the Land Water Conservation Fund for 50% of the project cost, and the remaining, which would be $555,000, to be funded by the township. The grant completion date is September of 2027. The proposed work included within Phase 2 of the Cecil Urban Park is focused on the western portion of the park and provides for a connection of the park to Nixon Road and to users beyond the immediate adjacent neighborhood. The proposed work includes the construction of an access driveway and parking, as well as a pavilion and extensive paved walking paths. Stormwater control measures will be constructed and enhanced to manage the proposed additional runoff created by the improvements. Related amenities also include a water fountain, benches, trash recycling receptacles, a kiosk, and picnic tables. Landscaping plantings are included within the park and along the border as a buffer planting. The concept plan depicting the proposed work associated with this grant is included in your packet. Staff is preparing to begin work on this project, starting with design work. Because the 2026 operating budget is unbalanced by approximately $3.6 million, staff is requesting the Board of Supervisors discuss the park improvement project and determine if staff should move forward with this budgeted project. It's recommended the Board of Supervisors discuss the Cecil Urban Park improvements budgeted for 2026 and provide direction to staff on whether to proceed with this construction project.
All right, so this is a discussion, and we'll start with whoever wants to start.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So we've already been approved for certain dollar amounts. We have a set amount budgeted. Does that mean the materials are already secured and okay? So I guess my follow-on statement would be when I think parks, I think asphalt, I think plastic, I think steel, glass, a lot of materials that are, if not refined from crude oil, are products of crude oil refinements or that are used in industrial processes. So if we haven't secured materials, there's definitely going to be escalation in costs with we'll say, current global events. And so if that $555,000 is, I mean, we're already 3.6 million over, would we not be expecting to go more in the hole on this particular project?
So, excuse me, so this project, I believe, was originally in the 2018 CIP, and the budget for it was roughly $380,000. And then it increased in 2022 or 2023. When we were applying for the grant, we redid the estimate. At that point, it was about $700,000. And once we were awarded the grant, we were originally awarded in the amount of $370-some thousand odd dollars. And we looked at the estimates once again, and at that point, with inflation, it had moved to about 1.1 million. We went back to Land Water Conservation Fund and said, hey, this is what we're seeing based on our construction estimates. Is there more money available? And they provided more funds. So that's how we got to the amount that we're at today and how we got the award of $550,000. It's possible, absolutely, that you would see the cost of materials go higher. However, I will say that part of the grant award for this particular project through Land Water Conservation Fund is that there's a very high bar for meeting their standards for green infrastructure and the overall components that go into the park. So in this case, the plaza, the parking plaza does have permeable pavers in the parking spots. So the entrance drive essentially and the main access road piece of the driveway essentially of the park would be asphalt, but the parking spaces would be permeable pavers. I believe the path is not expected to be paved at this time. We've gone back and forth on that a few times, but I believe that was some of the recommendation that it was possible that we wouldn't pave it to control costs. Everything else that's there, there's a small pavilion that was mentioned. The rest of it is really managing the stormwater aspects to the park site itself. And then everything else is what is, it's natural and green. So there's not really a ton of materials. There's no playground involved here. Benches, trash receptacles, but not a lot of components, I would say, to this park project. But they absolutely could go up.
I live in Pine Grove Mills. My wife and I do want to have a kid. We want to have a nice old park and all that stuff. But I don't think this, the way the budget is, the way the world's going, I think it is smart to hold off on this, and that's I'll leave it at that. So, yeah.
Ms. Stevens?
I think the thing that the stormwater mitigation things were something that I thought were sort of important with this project. I'm also a big proponent of park space. So I guess I would be supportive of it. And also I wonder if, in fact, we decline moving forward based on the budget. Would that sort of be a negative for future grants from DCNR?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and that sort of makes me nervous. So I would be supportive, but doing whatever we can to stay within the budgeted amount is where I stand.
Mr. Heller?
I appreciate the comments from the other supervisors, and one of the things that I consider with this, again, knowing the area, what I hear from constituents is they want walkable spaces. They want mobility. Nobody's asking for tennis courts, nobody's asking, and by the way, the fact that we even call out tennis courts tells us everybody, right, 2018, it was done before anybody ever heard the term pickleball. So, this is, to me, a little outdated. So what I would propose, and let me ask this, the things like stormwater basin or construction around a stormwater basin, are those because of what this park will be in the future? Or are those because of what needs to be in place now for what phase 2 is?
So, let me back all the way up to the first part of this. The sports fields, basketball courts, tennis courts that are on the site, that's not part of this project.
No,
part of this project, right? Okay. So when the stormwater is done, the stormwater, it is calculated per this project, leaving those areas essentially as open space right now. I think that part of to your point of it being dated, we would be looking at something like I don't want to say a whole new master planning process, but there's been a lot of, as I've gone back through this project, there's been a lot of different segments of conversation and what should be in the park, what shouldn't be in the park. So to identify what would be there going forward, we would have to do a deeper dive into that. But with what's proposed on the plan for this segment, there's not really, there's not a lot of things that we're looking ahead to that we would have to address. I believe leaving this as open space and sort of leaving this as green space, the stormwater management that's there would be based on the site as it is. That's what we're anticipating. That's what we kind of need to get into the design process for, is to understand what will actually be in this phase and where it will be in terms of the path and the location. So one thing that we've talked and explained to residents quite a bit is that the bike path or the walking path that's there, it was identified that it may be too close to residents' backyards, but this is just concept of what's on here. So once we get further into design, and that's kind of the question that's in front of us now, is that we can get into that first part of the design phase and really know where these things are going to be placed, where they're actually going to be constructed, that will give us a better idea of what that's going to look like. But there's still, an outlay to do that piece of it. So if we were going to do that and then decide maybe we're not committed to this financially at this point, or we want to deposit or anything, then essentially we would be losing whatever we put into it right now. So knowing that, this is kind of the question of, do we want to take that next step into that actual design process and know what is going to go where, what type of stormwater we're actually designing for. There have been some conversations to some ideas, looking at the topography and looking at some of this, looking at the site as it is now, but that's where we're going next. It's the next step to put pen to paper and really figure some of that out.
So if I may, hearing that, I think the important thing for me is really to focus on what's being asked for by the residents, and also what other residents are trying to avoid. So I would say increased mobility, connectivity. So how will this park be connected to other things? So maybe there are certain things that we don't invest in Cecil Urban, but we say, okay, there's other connectors we could do to other areas with the money that's available. So I don't know how fluid the grants are, or if it's only for the park. So let me pause there and ask.
Yeah, so this one being that this is awarded through Land Water Conservation Fund, it has a much higher bar than what we would normally see from one of our projects. We received a similar grant for Suburban Park, and all of the stormwater management that went into that park, the restoration of the channel and whatnot. And based on our performance on that grant is what established our ability to get this grant, and GCNR was comfortable making that recommendation to Land Water Conservation Fund. As far as the flexibility, not much. It pretty much is what it is. Now, in terms of, you mentioned connectivity, and I think that's probably the biggest component here, is that this would connect it to would connect the entrance plaza to the Nixon bike path, so shared use path, so you have one continuous path from the elementary school over to the park. That is a benefit that's here, but in terms of how much can you adjust, I mean, certainly we would be, like I mentioned, we would maybe adjusting the design in terms of where the path is located in the park, but beyond that, I don't know how much flexibility we have.
And if I may, the plan does not address the fact that the current playground that people access doesn't address parking right around that area.
That's correct. So the idea here is that the main entrance plaza would provide parking for residents that are traveling to visit the park, but the existing developed piece of Cecil Irvin Park, that currently it's all street parking, as you know. There is no parking available for that. So there's no plans to alter that portion of the park that's currently developed. This would just be installing the parking and entrance plaza on the western side of the park.
Okay. So not to throw a wrench into the whole plan, but if I may offer, I think the focus should really be on the parking around the thing that currently exists that draws people in. Residents have been talking about that for years. They have to park on the dead-end street and, walk through. It feels like almost somebody's backyard to work their way over to the part that's actually active right now and been active for years. So if anything, I would propose maybe a different redesign that focuses on the parking around the current location and connectivity to the elementary school. And for me, that answers pretty much all the questions. Oh, the pavilion's nice too, because people need a place to gather. But that's it. Everything else, and any future plans for a tennis court or basketball courts, I'm not a fan of any of that. I don't believe the residents are either. If for no other reason than just from the maintenance side of the house, that's a lot of upkeep. But that can be broached. It's not even part of this plan. Again, those are my general thoughts. I don't know what action or anything we're planning to take tonight around this, but that's where I am.
Is it everybody spoken? Okay. I'll reserve. Well, let me ask a couple of dollars and cents questions, and then we'll go to the room here. So number one, are there any potential stormwater MS4 credits associated with this project?
That's a tough question, not knowing the specifics of the permit, but it's not likely with this specific project.
Okay. When's the drop dead start date for construction?
Well, that's a good question. It's more that the completion date on the grant is September 2027.
Right.
And so
Probably 6 months.
yeah, I mean, I think what we've seen is as long as you're making progress and you have a shovel in the ground and you're moving through the project, they tend to be more lenient on that component, on that side of it. So long as hey, we're getting this done, it is what it is. They give you some leeway on that side of it, but it's hard to say when we would actually, what is the day that would be the date that's too far?
Good.
We're getting close.
Copy that. DNR still has money, correct? There weren't any pauses on when they're.
No, this was
Yeah.
approved well before that.
There's approved, and then there's actually having money in the bank
Correct.
to actually pay. Because I think that's because we're going to outlay some funds, and then they're going
Right.
to say, here's your check for 50%, whatever we spend.
Yeah, this was identified actually last year, 2024. No, last year. We looked into that, and they had already received the funding. They were allocated and had received the funding prior to that, so there wasn't any concern about.
Perfect.
It was already done.
Do you have any idea of our current capital outlay? I know that staff time kind of counts, and so I assume we've been charging hours here and there to that, or.
To this project?
Yeah.
Not a lot. Not anything that it would be an extreme amount. I would say what's been done here, we did this initial concept drawing, and prepared this in conjunction with the grant application. So there's, that piece of it. The majority of it has been outreach, addressing it with the board and with Parks and Recreation and Pine Grove Mill Small Area Plan Advisory Committee and those components of it. But in terms of the actual work in the design process, not a ton. That's kind of where we're at right now, is that this would be the start of that. And really the first look would be something like a 30% design schematic to bring back and say like, hey, this is what we're going to do. But yeah, in terms of actual hours into this project so far, not much beyond what's been into the grant, into the outreach.
Okay. So after today, should the board say, yes, keep going, or do we have like a specific charge code for everybody to hit for saying?
Yeah.
Such that we are tracking that regularly to know kind of how close are we going to get with staff time versus actual capital outlay for this?
Yeah, so this would be going into design with the consultant HRG. That's this, and realistically for this project, we would be using a consultant anyway, so that was always part of the plan. So they would be tracking that. We had budgeted for what the design would be. I think we're pretty much by the estimates that we've looked at. I think that's within the budget. Certainly, we're not over on that piece of it. So, as was mentioned, materials and construction might be a different story, but there's no concern over the budget in terms of design or anything like that.
We'll have really good costs because this will be done, all the design work will be done by our contracted engineer, so we'll have good
really good
data on that. We don't have any mechanism at this point for this project or anything in our CIP where we track how much time each staff person's putting into each project. That would be a very, very labor intensive, tedious, trying to track all your time for how much you're putting on each project. So, I mean, this is just kind of part of what we get paid for, is doing all these projects. And so we'll have good true dollars in terms of equipment and design costs and labor costs and all that. But in terms of how much time staff puts into preparing documents and talking to the engineer and so on, we don't have a mechanism for tracking that. Nor do we for any project.
I thought we did do that at some point where we had staff time as part of our
Sometimes a grant
contribution to these.
Sometimes grants will require, if you're doing in-kind matches to situations, you might have to begin to track some of your time if you want to use that to offset some costs from an in-kind standpoint.
Okay.
But I'll look to James if he knows anything different on any of these projects.
For these specific projects, it's not tracked that way. There is some tracking in terms of work orders and public works, in terms of how much time is spent for brush and leaf collection and those types of things, so that we can estimate what the workflow should be or what the schedule should be for the year. But in terms of the engineering and this side of things, that's not tracked that way.
Okay. And then have we looked to community partners, whether that's the Parks Authority or anyone else, just like as part of the funding mechanism here? So it's not, $550,000 out of the township budget, but it's, the authority's able to get some dollars to put into this for whatever vision is part of the overall parks vision, community partners, bringing in some dollars.
No.
Okay.
However, and this was in one of my narratives, so if anyone has read this, I should clarify that at one point we were anticipating the township receiving roughly about $300,000 in park fee and lieu money for the construction of one of the student housing facilities on West College. At the time, we were imagining that these timelines were going to line up much more closely, and they did not. So the idea was really out-of-pocket costs for the township, based on all of our estimates at the time, was this would be roughly $200,000 from the township into a $1.1 million project, $1.2 million project. It's a pretty good deal, but that has not been finalized. That project is still within the 5-year window following their preliminary review. There's still some time there that they can take before that gets built, so we can't really count on that at this point. But that was the idea at the time that we had gone through and started going after this grant.
Great, thanks. We'll go ahead and take a couple of public comments. Sir, name, township residents, and your comment.
Bill Keogh, Ferguson Township. The park's history goes back to Cecil Irvin and his time and service, both to the township in general, as well as being a longtime resident, as well as being a supervisor. And this is a park that was named for that service over a long period of time. James got a little bit into I'm concerned about the $555,000 side of the discussion. Is that a match, or is that just the shortfall for the project that ultimately would be coming up?
The total project cost is almost $1.2 million. Ferguson Township has a $550,000 outlay. It's a 50% match, so DCNR, Land Water Conservation Fund, is providing the other $550,000.
Okay, so it is a match. In order to activate the DCNR portion, it is a match environment as opposed to just a shortfall of the project. I think that's of concern because there's obligation that goes with that in terms of those dollars. I guess the next question about the $555,000 is the source of those dollars on the township side. And the first thing that comes to my mind is our utilization of the fee and lieu dollars that are in that portion of our assets and so on. How much do we have? Do we have that amount in our current fee and lieu environment? And it troubles me to bring this up, but our fee and lieu park fund grows on the basis of our development process within the township. And we are fully aware that our development portion of our township over the last 5 years has been significantly slowed. And so consequently, that fund has not been building during the last 5 years. Before I would commit to $555,000, I would want to know how much of our fee and lieu fund could be utilized toward that match, and what then the shortfall on the side of the township would be to that. It's my feeling, and I was part of the whole Cecil Urban Park thing, but it's my feeling that this project is a candidate for pause at this point, as opposed to actively moving forward. Given the issue with regard to our shortfall in the operating budget, $3.6 million, I would prefer to recommend to the board that they put this project on pause at this point. I realize that there is the risk of losing $500,000 from the state, but remember that $500,000 comes with a cost. That's not free money. So I would suggest pausing. Two reasons. One is we're in a management change in this township. And while we have an interim manager who is perfectly capable, and we have a staff that is perfectly capable, one of the things that we're lacking without having a permanent manager is the vision of that manager in terms of the township in general, and that's part of what we'll be hiring. I'd like to have a project like this become part of that manager's work as opposed to carrying on at the moment. I'd like to see a rework of the master plan for this park. It's pretty old. And what was thought of at the time is not necessarily where the priorities lie at the moment. And so before we start putting money into this project, I'd like to see the park committee go back and do some rework and discussion in terms of the master plan itself. And that they can do now without expending any significant amount of money and or dipping into the grant. I'm just not sure we're ready to move this project forward at this particular time. Not that it's not an appropriate project. I'm just not sure that this is the best time, and that would be my recommendation to the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mark Uncle, Ferguson Township. It's obvious that Bill and I haven't collaborated on our points of discussion this evening, so I want to give you a different perspective on this. First off, on February 3rd, you received a report from your finance director that showed that the 2025 budget year ended in the positive with $3.1 million, which meant that you underspent your total budget for 2025. At the end of this year, 2025, your fund balance increased from $15.4 million to $17.3 million. So there is sufficient fund balance to meet the obligations of this grant. Secondly, I would say that it's premature to make the decision this evening on this until you actually get your financial statement from your auditor, which is due April 1st. It will tell you what the actual numbers are. Todd's probably very close. He's in the ballpark of what the balances are, but you will have an exact number when you get your finance statement from your auditors on April 1st. Secondly, third, you can spread this cost out over 2 budget years, 2026, 2027. So it's not a hit all in one year. So you could spread this out and not have a $555,000 expenditure in 2026. It could be spread out over 2 years. And finally, I am adamantly opposed to the use of any of the regional park funds for these projects. The original intent of that money that was set aside was almost as an endowment to pay the debt service on the regional park. It was not intended to be used for local parks, and this is a local park. And my last point is that the residents of Pine Grove Mills deserve to have a park. It's not adequate to use the Ferguson Township Elementary School as their park. So we have a village there, we have new development occurring, we have the potential for more new development. And so the idea is to be foresighted here, develop the park in phases. It's not going to get cheaper. So I think the challenge is, how do we do it? Not don't do it. So those are my points for this evening, but thank you.
Thank you. Mr.
Yes, and I appreciate the points. Again, taking all of this in and this being a discussion, I would like to see what we can do right now in replanning the park. And why I say that, and should not cost anything, is I can't imagine, and I don't want to imagine a day where as a supervisor, this is built as it is right now, and I'll make this about me for a moment, and constituents come up and say, well, here's the thing I want to do. Here's the playground that I go to. Why would you build the parking lot over 1/10 of a mile away and have me walk uphill to this place? That phase doesn't make sense to me. I hope, maybe it doesn't make sense to a lot of folks. It doesn't to me. So I would consider, I would ask that maybe we reconsider the layout of the park, reducing the footprint to something that's manageable around the current location, increasing mobility from that location to other areas like Ferguson Township Elementary, again, because folks do want to walk between those areas. And the addition of a pavilion, make it simple. And then the question also comes into, what do we do with all this extra land? Well, do we hold on to it? Do we divest of it? That's a future conversation. We talk about revenue. That's prime real estate. I'll just open that up for a conversation again, not for tonight, but what else could we do with this area while increasing mobility, increasing the areas that folks have access to, and, making it more accessible, making the area that currently exists more accessible? Because I just think it's going to be a tough sell to anybody that tries to visit the park and say, but you didn't improve the thing that I'm trying to use today. You put a parking lot 1/10 of a mile away. That, I'm concerned about that. So I don't know where that goes, but.
Stevens?
I have a question. Is it possible to ask for an extension to that build by September of 2027? I seem to recall that we did that with Whitehall Road Regional Park and that whole pavilion, asking for an extension. Is it possible? And then to say that, community input has said that we need to rework it and that we're still committed to improving and.
It's certainly something I can look into with Land Water Conservation Fund. I don't know where they're, what that level of flexibility is. Like, I think where we've seen some of that is kind of like we're moving along with it, and we have some progress here. I think. So yeah, I can look into that and see what their standard is.
And that gives us till April to get our numbers, but.
So I'll maybe short circuit this a little bit and bring it home here.
Yep.
We have an opportunity to move forward with kind of a space for a fairly sizable kind of dense group of people. We also have the benefit of a parks committee to go back to and say, hey, can you guys investigate this? And we've done a couple of surveys now within the township to ask people, hey, what do you think this is now? So I think I agree with some of the comments about let's take a look at this. Let's reopen what that plan is, spend a little time on it, come up with something, and it doesn't have to be now that we commit to that plan, but it does have to be probably within the next 6 months. Such that in 6 months, a year from now, shovels in ground, full designs are complete, shovels in ground. So I appreciate this coming to the board today, as opposed to October or November or December when we've done a bunch of stuff and nobody likes it, so then we don't have a lot of time to pivot. We have time to pivot now, and that's great. So I think if there was a motion that exists that says, provide, if there was a motion for direction, I would say I would recommend for one to be made that included getting the Parks Committee involved. One that included to start tracking staff time, whether it's just hours of humans and on a sheet of paper and they turn it in at the end of the year to say all that counts, I think, toward this grant. And so it's not necessarily $550,000 out of pocket out of the other line items in the budget. It's just $550,000 and we're paying staff every 2 weeks. So there's an opportunity to chip away at that with like today. The fact that, staff isn't here talking about it right now, that counts. And I'm sorry, I'll pause for Mr. Manager if you've got some.
I don't know.
Okay. So Parks Committee, track staff time, and survey the community. I think those three things combined will give us something over the next 3 months or so to then come back and say, all right, here's it updated. Shall we move forward with the, and we had an engineer, maybe in-house, maybe one of our contractors that's already doing a bunch of work to pencil out a couple of things for everybody to take a look at and see if we want to move forward. So I think there's a step that we can take before it's a proceed hot and heavy or stop in our tracks. I think there's a little bit more we can do here. That would be my recommendation.
Can I just comment?
Please, sir. Just
two things that we'd want to go back and check with the grant provider is one to Ms. Stevens' question about extensions, if that's possible, if that's needed, what their position is on that. Also, it's my understanding, and I certainly don't know that much about this grant, but we would want to confirm, to my knowledge, it doesn't take existing staff time as part of the match. It's direct additional expenses, equipment, and our engineer's time. Engineer costs would be because it's a contracted engineer, all of that. I don't believe, but we will confirm as part of our report back.
Okay.
In the 3 months or whatever it takes for all this. If this is the direction the board wants to go, but I just wanted to caution that I'm doubtful that our existing staff time will be counted towards the grant.
Okay.
Just for clarification, it looks like the major materials, like expenditure-wise materials here would primarily be asphalt. It looks like, there's a lot, it looks like a lot of, let's say paved surfaces for what phase 2 ends up being.
So it's possible, but let me say this. So in this design phase, right, like what we're looking at here that was put together for the grant is really a document to give the grant reviewer an idea of what's here. So we took what was on the master plan and converted it into this format so that we could adequately explain what was going to be designed. If we move to the next step, what we're looking at is a possible, it would be something like a 30% design, and then my strategy was to do exactly what the vice chair had mentioned, was to go back to Parks Committee with that design, go to Pine Grove Mill Small Area Plan Advisory Committee, and go to the Tree Commission, because there were a number of questions that I fielded from residents about trees that would be planted, all of those things. So on the map document, yes, it says asphalt. It does not need to be asphalt. We want to make sure that it's ADA compliant, that we have the slopes that are what they need to be. There could be much less of that in the final design. I've even had some preliminary discussions with our township engineer regarding stormwater, where there were some ideas that we might not need these 2 basins, but that was what was shown on the original master plan, and so that's what we presented to show that continuity for the grant process. So there is flexibility, you know, there's some flexibility here, for sure.
All right, is there a motion?
This is Matt. I move that the Parks Committee review the master plan, that staff engage with appropriate internal and external committees, including community and members of the community, all while tracking staff time towards this effort.
Is there a second?
This is Patty, I'll second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Discussion. Mr. White.
Is the staff time necessary?
That's part of the,
Okay, all right. I remember.
it may or may not get struck depending on when they go to engage DCNR. Is that-
If I could just ask in terms of the motion, if we, you know, one thing I think we could probably find out pretty quickly is whether or not we can, and it'd be great if we can use staff time, that would be wonderful. But if we find early on that we can't, then I wouldn't want to create a process for us having to track existing staff time if it's not count towards anything. So I just would want to recommend in the motion that if staff time can be counted towards the grant, that we begin to track it immediately.
Yes, that should be inferred unless, do we need to amend the motion for that?
We'll infer it. What do you think?
If I may too, do we need to add anything, and I apologize for for staff to go back to the grant folks to see about an extension or anything? That's just something
That
that's
staff
the board
can handle that.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor do so by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
And thank you for that discussion and helps giving us direction. On that.
All right. So I guess communications to the board, the committees got tossed into there, but I guess we'll proceed with those. Joint land use and community infrastructure.
Yes, that would be me. And, so, I'm sorry, I have them in one of my windows here. I apologize. Not that one. Oh, no. Trevor, do you have it pulled up? I'm sorry, probably my notes. I apologize, 1 second.
It's okay, we can move on.
The main thing that we talked about was them renaming and sending it back to the municipalities. Was it executive? The executive committee and general forum for like confirmation on the renaming of Lucy and renaming the consolidation renaming, and we settled on a name. I don't know if that'll get hammered out in exec and general forum, so I don't know if it's worth bringing up here, but I mean it'd be Lucy but with an S instead of a C. So yeah.
Original.
Okay. And Matt, we can come back to you. We can come back to you in a minute if you'd like. There was an executive committee meeting this morning. They also, at the COG level, COG executive committee, they also approved the removal from the solar. I think that was the big thing there.
I'm good, and that essentially what Trevor said was everything that I had in the notes provided. There wasn't, anything more than just pretty much the restructuring, what that could look like. What we did ask, though, was specifically that that COG come back with what they would like to see and what they would like to recommend in the number of elected members on these things, because essentially we've now doubled up these two committees to be part of maybe one committee. And it can get very muddy to me if all of a sudden you have two different committees in there with two different agendas trying to figure things out, and everybody's got their own sense of what both committees should be doing or looking at. No, thank you. So let's focus on the renaming, let's focus on what this committee should look like in the future, and then maybe even reduce our elected time in there if we already have representation in one or the other, and let the municipalities figure out how to fill the spots that are recommended. But also, it all has to move through different committees and more discussion to happen at COG around that. So essentially, we're still waiting, I would say, for a more strategic vision for what the two groups would look like merged from COG to then discuss further, if I had to wrap it up and put a bow on it.
It's a nice bow.
Yeah, it's a bow. That was that.
Okay. You also have finance.
Yeah, so finance, a couple different things there. Apologize, my screen is not working for me and it's frozen now. I have the pinwheel of death. Here we go. Thanks. So we did have a review of the facilities management plan. I will say this, one of the questions around facilities as we think about it are the programmatic needs, for instance, in parks, etc. And the question was really, are we developing our plans for facilities based around what we think we want in the future, some strategy? Or are we saying, you know, what we're doing right now is good enough and we probably don't need to expand facilities? So one of the questions that I was asking was really trying to bring it all together in facilities, finance, parks example, and look at these different things as one and really ask, and the executive director was unable to attend, for the executive, or I should say the strategic plan for everything, personnel, facilities, how are all these things playing together? And we've not seen that yet. So that was one thing that the discussion around facilities sparked for me. It's great to talk about facilities, but if we don't include that in some master plan and see where we're going with staff time, does it really make sense to manage facilities the way that we are, et cetera? So I think there are going to be, and why I'm saying this, more discussions with the executive director of COG around what the master plan is for COG, the strategy for COG that impact facilities, that impact personnel, that impact all those things that connect together in COG. So not so much a finance thing, but it was sparked, I should say, it was sparked by the facilities discussion that we had. A lot to say there. The budget phase, so we were reviewing the timeline. We did shift everything that I presented last month about a month to the right. So I did include some dates in the report there. So you'll see everything. Major municipal comments are going to be due by May 7th. I would hope our manager maybe received some communication on that so far. I don't know if you have or have not, but that's something that, again, we'll be following up on just to make sure that we're all aligned to when municipal comments will be received. Again, we are following the Gantt chart that we laid out last year, so there are visuals that are out there for everybody if they're interested. The other thing, finally, the fund balance policy update. So the Finance Committee is going to review the executive summary and some narratives at an upcoming meeting. And again, that will also be brought in for discussion with municipalities because this will be the first time that we actually have a fund balance policy that everybody can throw pickles at and have better conversations and understandings on. So that was it in a nutshell. Yeah, happy to answer questions.
What does throw pickles at mean again?
I like pickles. Okay.
Instead of rocks.
Yeah, no rocks. Gosh, no, pickles.
Very good. In your report, you also had the ADA compliance solution for
Yes.
finance. That also came up in executive committee to approve that. So it's going to be like $9,000 a year for ADA compliant websites. I was a little concerned about that number, just like year over year, every year, and every other municipality is going to have to do it for their website. So opportunity to look at more of like a regional approach there.
Well,
For that.
one, if I may, adding to that, my concern, and it was raised in the Finance Committee, is the amount of staff time it takes and training it takes to get up to speed on what you can and cannot do in the ADA space for accessibility online. Because if you have somebody who develops a PDF and that is not accessible, well, how much rework is it going to take to get it to be accessible? So for me, this was more of a conversation at the tail end, that sieve of, before it gets onto a website, how ADA accessible does it have to be, versus we should really have to address this way upstream of that and say, we have to train staff to make sure that they are developing things appropriately so that they don't have to rework things at the end and then spend more staff time. But we are not alone. The university, other large corporations are going through this right now as well because it is a federal mandate, and it is something that everybody's trying to figure out. To your point, Mr. Patterson, yes, if there are ways that we can go ahead and find value in coming together, maybe for training, maybe in other ways. I think we have to explore them. Thank you for the connection there. Appreciate it.
Okay, the couple other items that we kind of tossed on were Pennsylvania Municipal League. Mr. White and I attended that. It was really about kind of priorities for legislations and advocacy at the state level. Ferguson, both the items that we talked about last meeting regarding earned income and kind of the PUC decision to stick with the public utility, they've both made it onto the docket for bringing forth to the other regions. There were 3 total that were ideas that were brought forward. That was apparently a record.
Wow.
And then National League of Cities had to spend a couple days down there, and invaluable kind of discussions, and I've kind of brought them up throughout the last couple of days. There's a kind of national grant finder tool that they have that I think will do some good for us. There's there's some security dollars. So for the World Cup that's coming, there's federal dollars to bolster your police force to help out in that regard. It just so happens that Jeffrey Field is on the list of practice facilities. So it's an opportunity. It may not be for us. It could be just the borough, but to the extent we're asked to help, there's some opportunity there for us. It's not just hey, Ferguson, go help, but and here's some dollars to, for those individuals that'll be doing that aren't directly from our budget locally. So I would encourage everybody to, maybe find some time to attend some of their events and learn what's outside of where we are here.
Yeah, that sort of ties into a discussion we had at our last meeting, about Penn State and the increase in activities, increased use of the stadiums and Bryce Jordan Center, all these other venues, and our emergency management response. And, so I think we need to pay attention to that and be more involved with discussions with Penn State around that, because we are not like many other Big Ten schools. We have one hospital system, really. I mean, you can kind of count the little one out in Patton Township, but, and we have a volunteer fire department. So I think in terms of the impact of our COG contributions in emergency management and public safety and that sort of thing, we need to be closely talking with Penn State.
Yeah. I would love to dig more into the federal security dollars, because when I think of federal, I generally think of I don't want to say unfunded mandates, but what's that going to impose on us as far as any additional staff time for tracking things, for all that stuff. So I would love to look more into that. Yeah, I guess I'll get with you afterwards and try and figure it, or I'll just Google around on NLC. I can probably figure that out. So yeah, I'm gonna look into that.
Any other communications to the board? I guess for those were. Oh, yes, sir.
Oh, no, please.
Just kind of a communications to the board. The month of April is pretty important for the recruitment for the manager, and at your table, staff has provided you a list, I should say staff, it was actually the assistant to the manager, Jenna, who put together a calendar. If at all, at the end of the meeting, if you could possibly look at your calendars, because we need to try to pin some dates down and also put some panels together. This would be, so the public knows, this would be for the board to be able to do their work on the recruitment process for both virtual interviews and then eventually in-person interviews. Thank you. And Jen will be here to answer any questions or take your forms.
All right. Mr. Heller.
Oh, no, my only other communications were related to the property that was being developed, questions around that. And then I had another one relating to Easter Sunday and Joe Hayes Vista, an event that's going on there with local churches, which I've communicated to the manager. Thanks.
Stevens? No. What?
quiet couple weeks.
And I think everything I've brought up has been part of a communications to the board, so. I think that's it. Calendar items. There's a lot. So the one question on the build day, is that the volunteer build day, or is it, that's where we are encouraging volunteers to help? Awesome. So Kaboom Playground Build Day, August 13th through 15th. Mark your calendars to come out and help build a playground. There's also a need for community partners and sponsors. Guess I'll put that plug out there for that on that day of the 13th through 15th. Having community partners and sponsors will be great. Reach out to Manager King for that. Mr. Abbey already talked about the Watershed Cleanup Day. Volunteers for that. Love to have that. And then, on the 8th of April, the neighborhood associations will come out here and have a discussion with staff.
I'll just add something real quick on the Watershed Cleanup Day, just to, I don't know, like re-emphasize it. Last year I went out and did it, and it was awesome. And if you're like, we found so many like bones. It like in the wood, like it's,
Ew.
I know, but like it was really cool. Like just I know I'm just gonna say it, like it was fascinating to see what all is around in like Pine Grove Mills. Like somebody made like a makeshift like fire pit in the middle of the woods. It looked like some team. Like it's just interesting going out, picking up all the trash.
Motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
But if I may, I think the chief's down there always wondering if these are human bones or,
Of course not.
All right, very good. All right, well, thank you all for attending and appreciate your team.
Yes.
Ms.
Motion
Stevens.
to adjourn, please.
I'll second and we're adjourned.